Beneath the surface of the oceans there lies a hidden kingdom where silence and fury coexist, a realm so vast that it makes the tallest mountains of the continents seem like mere toys in comparison. Here, in the abyss where light dares not enter, volcanoes breathe with a rhythm older than humanity itself, releasing their fire in bursts of power that shape the very face of the planet. These are not ordinary mountains. They are colossal furnaces of creation, erupting in darkness, sculpting the seabed, building islands that rise like miracles, and shattering the illusion that the earth is ever stable. The paradox of underwater volcanoes is that they are at once invisible and omnipresent, silent to human ears yet loud enough to echo through the geological record of billions of years. To contemplate them is to confront the sheer arrogance of human perception. For we look at landscapes on land and imagine that we have seen the true earth, when in reality more than 3/4 of volcanic activity occurs out of sight, hidden under waves that conceal both beauty and terror. The ocean floor is not flat and tranquil, but scarred with ridges, trenches, and fiery wounds, where magma rises from the mantle. It is the longest mountain chain on Earth, stretching for tens of thousands of kilometers across the seafloor, yet most people live and die unaware of its existence. This hidden spine of the world is the mid-ocean ridge, a continuous volcanic system where tectonic plates drift apart, and magma fills the gap, birthing new crust in a process as relentless as time itself. Imagine it, a wound that never heals, a scar that keeps bleeding fire, and yet from that bleeding comes life and stability. The ground beneath your feet, the island nations, even the continents themselves are mosaics stitched together by countless eruptions beneath the waves. The earth is alive, restless, and its pulse is volcanic. Underwater eruptions are not spectacles for the eyes as they are on land. There are no columns of ash rising into the stratosphere, no fiery rivers flowing through cities, no thunderous sounds cracking the sky. Instead, there is a muffled thunder that vibrates through the abyss, a boiling of water superheated to extremes, a slow dome of lava hardening instantly as it kisses the freezing darkness. The explosion remains unseen, but its effects ripple across ecosystems and continents. The sea swells, gases are released, minerals spread like invisible dust that fertilizes the oceans. The human eye does not witness it, yet the human world is shaped by it. Entire island chains like Hawaii or Iceland were forged this way, and nations celebrate their landscapes without realizing they are children of fire born in water. The earth does not ask permission to create, it simply does. There is a strange humility in that. Humanity, with its pride in its skyscrapers and machines, imagines it commands the world. Yet in the shadow of these underwater furnaces we are reminded that we are tenants, not owners, passengers in a vessel shaped by forces beyond comprehension. A single eruption hidden beneath the waves can release more energy than all the bombs humanity has ever built, and yet it happens without our applause, without our awareness, as if the earth were laughing at our obsession with control. To explore underwater volcanoes is to step into a cathedral of contradictions. Fire burns without light. Mountains grow without being seen. Explosions occur in silence. And still, in these contradictions, life finds refuge. Near the hydrothermal vents that accompany volcanic ridges, bizarre creatures thrive. Worms longer than a human arm, shrimps that see with heat instead of light, crabs that walk across fields of sulfur, bacteria that feast on toxic chemicals. They exist in places where humans would disintegrate in an instant, proving that life is not fragile but adaptable, not delicate but defiant. These creatures remind us that what we call extreme is only extreme to us. To them, it is home. Philosophers often speak of the absurdity of life, and here the absurd becomes reality. Volcanoes meant to destroy become engines of fertility. Cracks in the seafloor meant to consume become nurseries of ecosystems. Perhaps the very first spark of life on this planet emerged from such places, nurtured not by sunlight but by the chemical cauldrons of the deep. If that is true, then every human heartbeat is a distant echo of an underwater eruption. The story of humanity would then be inseparable from the fire beneath the waves, and the devil of myth, the one we associate with fire and chaos, would suddenly appear less as an enemy and more as a strange architect of existence. Scientists with their machines descend into the abyss, sending robotic submersibles armed with cameras and sensors. They capture footage of eruptions so surreal they look like dreams. Glowing fountains of lava rising in pitch darkness, bubbles of molten rock exploding and freezing instantly, plumes of minerals spreading like ghostly clouds. These images reach our screens, and for a moment we glimpse the alien world beneath, a world more alien than Mars or Jupiter. Yet we forget again, distracted by our daily lives, blind to the fact that we live above oceans of fire. It is both terrifying and liberating to realize this. Terrifying because we are fragile, liberating because it proves the universe is more magnificent than our fears. There is humor hidden here too, for nature often laughs at human categories. We divide fire from water, destruction from creation, life from death, as if they were opposites. Yet in the abyss they dance together. Fire meets water, and instead of annihilation there is creation. Destruction births life. Silence speaks louder than thunder. The joke is cosmic, and we are slow to understand it. But when we do, we find wisdom. They are not interruptions. They are the very process of Earth being Earth. Without them there would be no continents, no mountains, no valleys, no homes. Without them we would not exist. They are reminders that what we fear may also be what sustains us, that what we avoid may also be what we need. In their glow we see the paradox of existence itself, fragile yet resilient, temporary yet eternal, destructive yet creative. Picture an eruption beneath the Pacific, deep and unseen. Lava bursts forth, cooled instantly into black basalt that cracks and shatters as more magma pushes behind it. Superheated water escapes, rising in plumes kilometers high. Around this chaos, life swarms, feeding off the chemical banquet. Slowly, layer by layer, a seamount rises. Centuries pass. The mountain grows until one day it breaks the surface, steam rising as it kisses the air for the first time. A new island is born. Humans arrive much later, building homes, planting crops, worshipping gods, fighting wars, writing history, never realizing that their world was born of a silent eruption that no one ever saw. That is the gift and the irony of underwater volcanoes. They shape our lives without asking for recognition. They are creators who do not sign their works, artists who leave masterpieces in the shadows. To contemplate them is to be humbled, to feel small in a way that is strangely comforting. For if the world is so much greater than us, then perhaps our anxieties are smaller than we think. Perhaps our fears are brief sparks compared to the fire of the earth. Perhaps we are not the center of the story, and that is a relief. The ocean hides its volcanoes as if to remind us that truth is not always visible, that the most powerful things are often unseen. We chase light and visibility, but the foundations of existence lie in darkness. To meditate on this is to learn patience, to learn trust in what we cannot see. The volcanoes keep burning, whether or not we notice. They are steady, eternal in their restlessness. They do not need witnesses. They are free. And in that freedom lies their majesty. Humanity often craves permanence, stability, certainty. We build monuments and write laws, hoping they will last forever. Yet the volcanoes whisper another truth. Nothing is permanent, nothing is stable, nothing is certain. And still, that is not tragedy but beauty. For just as lava becomes rock, rock becomes land, and land becomes home, so too do our fleeting lives create meaning, even if they too will one day vanish. The volcanoes teach us that impermanence is not failure, it is the essence of creation. Consider this: when a volcano erupts underwater, the immense pressure of the sea often suppresses its violence. Explosions that would devastate continents are absorbed, muffled, tamed. This reveals a strange balance. Water calms fire, just as fire transforms water. The two enemies are in truth collaborators. What wisdom could humanity gain if it embraced this paradox? How many wars are fought because we believe opposites must annihilate each other, when in reality they could create something greater together? The abyss is not only geology, it is philosophy. It is a school where the earth itself is the teacher, and we are reluctant students. We prefer easy truths, but the abyss gives us paradoxes. We prefer certainty, but the abyss gives us mystery. We prefer comfort, but the abyss gives us humility. And perhaps humility is what we need most in a world where our technology grows faster than our wisdom. Imagine if humanity embraced the lessons of underwater volcanoes. We might build not only stronger cities but stronger spirits. We might learn to respect the power that creates us. We might stop pretending we are the masters of nature and instead live as its collaborators. For in truth, we are already collaborators, whether we accept it or not. Every breath we take, every meal we eat, every moment we live is possible because the earth keeps creating itself beneath our feet, beneath our seas. The fire of underwater volcanoes is the hidden heartbeat of the planet, and to ignore it is to ignore ourselves. Beneath the endless waves of the oceans, the volcanoes continue their eternal labor, sculpting the planet in silence while humanity carries on with its illusions of permanence. In this hidden world, entire mountain chains rise and collapse, new islands are born and vanish, gases are released that alter climates, and yet most of these events occur without human eyes to witness them. The second chapter of this abyssal story is not about discovery alone, but about consequence. For the eruptions hidden beneath the waves are not isolated spectacles. They are forces that ripple across the biosphere, shaping the earth in ways subtle and violent. Consider the birth of Surtsey in the year 1963, an island that rose suddenly off the coast of Iceland. To the fishermen who first noticed the smoke and steam rising from the sea, it must have appeared as if some myth had come alive, as if the gods themselves had chosen that day to remind mortals of their power. Within weeks, a new island had emerged where none had existed before, a raw landscape of fire, ash, and molten rock. Scientists rushed to study it, treating it as a living laboratory, and they witnessed the first colonization of life upon sterile land. Seeds arrived by wind, birds carried nutrients, waves deposited organic matter. Slowly mosses and lichens began to creep across the rock, followed by insects, eventually plants, and even small animals. Within years, a barren volcanic desert became an ecosystem, and yet, as magical as this story is, it is but one of countless similar events that occur across the globe, unseen beneath the sea. Surtsey was special only because it broke the surface. Thousands of other islands have begun their existence in silence, rising from the abyss but never reaching air, collapsing under their own weight, eroded by currents. The ocean floor is littered with the ghosts of such mountains, seamounts that never became islands, monuments to eruptions that no one ever saw. And here lies the irony. Humanity obsesses over visible catastrophes, yet ignores the hidden ones that are far greater in scale. The eruption of Krakatoa in 1883 is etched into history as one of the most violent events ever recorded, producing sounds heard thousands of kilometers away and skies painted blood red across continents. Yet for every Krakatoa, there are hundreds of underwater eruptions that exceed it in force, but they remain silent to us, their violence muffled by the sea. The ocean swallows the sound, contains the ash, absorbs the energy. What we call catastrophe is, in truth, ordinary in the abyss. The climate itself has been shaped by these eruptions. When massive volumes of volcanic gases are released into the water and then into the atmosphere, the balance of heat shifts. Sulfur particles scatter sunlight, cooling the earth, while carbon dioxide traps heat, warming it. Over geological time, these fluctuations, driven largely by submarine activity, have influenced ice ages and warming periods. The irony is that humanity debates endlessly over climate change, imagining it is purely a result of its own actions, while forgetting that the planet has always been a theater of shifting climates, sculpted in large part by forces hidden beneath the sea. This does not absolve humanity of responsibility, but it reminds us of humility. We are players in a game much older and larger than ourselves. The story of Hawaii offers another glimpse into this hidden drama. That archipelago of islands, beloved for its beauty, exists because of a single volcanic hotspot beneath the Pacific Ocean. For millions of years, lava has erupted there, building islands one after another as the tectonic plate drifts slowly northwest. The Big Island is the youngest, still growing, while older islands erode and sink back into the sea. Eventually new islands will rise in the southeast, continuing the chain. It is a story of perpetual birth and death, of creation and erosion, all orchestrated by an underwater furnace invisible to those who stroll the beaches. Each palm tree, each wave that crashes upon black sand, each song of the Hawaiian people is rooted in fire that once erupted in darkness. The devil would laugh at this irony, for humanity builds paradise upon foundations of destruction. And yet that is the paradox of life itself. Our gardens are planted in ashes, our cultures thrive on landscapes forged by catastrophe. The Icelandic people too know this truth. Their entire nation stands upon the mid-Atlantic ridge, a place where two tectonic plates pull apart and magma fills the void. Volcanic eruptions there are so common that the people weave them into their identity. Geysers erupt in fields, hot springs steam beneath the snow, volcanoes dominate the skyline. It is a land where fire and ice dance eternally, a land shaped by forces that originate deep below the sea. To live in Iceland is to live with the knowledge that the ground is never fully stable, that creation and destruction are neighbors. This awareness breeds a kind of stoicism, a resilience born of proximity to power. Humanity is reminded that to live near fire is to accept impermanence, and yet, paradoxically, that impermanence becomes identity, even pride. The ocean hides most of these stories from us, but sometimes it reveals its secrets with terrifying clarity. In the year 2022, the eruption of Hunga Tonga, Hunga Hapai, shook the world. Though much of the volcano was underwater, the explosion was so immense that it blasted ash into the stratosphere, generated shock waves that circled the globe, and produced tsunamis across oceans. Satellites captured the plume as it rose like a monstrous flower into the sky, and for a moment the world remembered that the earth is not tame. What terrified many was not simply the scale of the eruption, but the realization that most such events are hidden. If this one had been deeper, if the sea had swallowed it entirely, we might never have known it occurred. The devil smiles in such moments, for he knows that what we cannot see we often dismiss, and what we dismiss can still destroy us. Humanity measures danger by visibility, but true danger often dwells unseen. These underwater explosions also carry a philosophical lesson. They remind us that the greatest forces are silent, that power does not always announce itself. We fear the roar of thunder, but forget that the tectonic plates themselves move in silence. We fear the crash of waves, but forget that currents carve canyons over millennia without sound. The underwater volcano is a metaphor for the hidden struggles in our own lives, the pressures we endure, the eruptions we suppress, the mountains we build in secret. Like the seamounts that never reach the surface, many of our battles remain unseen, yet they shape who we are. The humor of the abyss lies in its indifference. While we write poetry about sunsets, the earth is busy creating entire continents without witness. While we argue about politics, the seafloor splits open, birthing new crust. While we measure time in years, the volcanoes measure it in eons. Our dramas are brief flickers compared to the steady rhythm of fire and water, and yet, in our smallness, we are part of this rhythm. Every atom in our bodies was forged in some furnace, cosmic or terrestrial. The iron in our blood once flowed in magma, the calcium in our bones once settled in oceans enriched by volcanic ash. To ignore underwater volcanoes is to ignore ourselves. Imagine if we could walk along the mid-ocean ridges as we do along city streets. We would see rivers of molten rock glowing in the darkness, fountains of minerals rising like underwater fireworks, mountains stretching beyond the horizon. We would feel the heat of creation on our skin, hear the muffled heartbeat of the earth. We would realize that we live not on a solid world but on a restless creature, alive and breathing. Perhaps then we would learn respect. Perhaps then we would stop pretending to be masters and instead become students again. There is a kind of sacredness in this thought. For if underwater volcanoes are the hidden altars of creation, then to study them is a form of reverence. To send machines into the abyss is not merely science, it is pilgrimage. And every discovery, Every image of fire beneath water is a reminder that the earth is more mysterious than our myths, more powerful than our gods, more enduring than our fears. The ocean conceals but does not erase. The volcanoes continue their labor, indifferent to our awareness. They do not erupt for us. They erupt because that is their nature. And in that indifference lies wisdom. For perhaps the highest form of power is not domination but persistence, not spectacle but endurance. The underwater volcano does not need to be seen to be real, does not need to be worshipped to be holy. It simply is. Humanity might learn from this quiet persistence. We chase recognition, applause, fame. We want our works to be seen, our names remembered. But the greatest works, like continents, do not need signatures. They last because they are true, not because they are visible. The abyss whispers this lesson, but few listen. Yet for those who do, the world expands. They see not just water, but a living earth, not just waves, but a hidden fire. And once you have seen it, you can never see the ocean the same way again. Beneath the pressure of the deep, where no sunlight ever penetrates, and where silence reigns like an eternal sovereign, the underwater volcanoes keep sculpting not only the shape of the earth, but the fabric of life itself. In this chapter, the fire of the abyss reveals its strange paradox more clearly than ever before, because the same forces that devastate and terrify are the ones that nurture and sustain. It may seem contradictory to imagine life flourishing near fountains of molten rock and boiling water, but such contradictions are the essence of existence, and the ocean is the stage where they play out with greatest drama. Along the mid-ocean ridges, hydrothermal vents bloom like black chimneys, spewing plumes of superheated water enriched with minerals. These vents are children of volcanic fire, born when magma meets seawater and gives birth to chemical cauldrons. Temperatures rise above 300 degrees Celsius. Pressures are so extreme that any unprotected human body would be crushed in an instant. Yet here life not only exists but thrives in abundance. Entire ecosystems cling to these vents, forming oases of life in what would otherwise be barren darkness. Giant tube worms taller than a man grow in clusters, their bodies home to bacteria that convert chemicals into energy. Blind shrimp swarm the vents, navigating by heat instead of light. Crabs scuttle across the mineral-rich fields, grazing like cattle upon microbial mats. These creatures are not merely survivors, they are pioneers, living proof that life does not depend solely on sunlight but can flourish on the raw energy of the earth itself. For centuries, philosophers asked where life began and how it could arise from inanimate matter. The hydrothermal vents provide a possible answer. In their mineral-rich cauldrons, chemistry dances with physics, molecules assemble, complexity arises, and the conditions that could spark life are present. It is possible that billions of years ago, when the earth was young and hostile, it was not in gentle sunlit pools that life began, but in the fiery shadows of underwater volcanoes. If so, then every breath we take is a tribute to these hidden furnaces, every heartbeat a reminder that our lineage is entwined with the fire of the abyss. The irony is delicious. What we fear as destructive may in truth be the womb of creation. And yet, alongside this creative power lies a destructive potential that should not be underestimated. For just as these volcanoes nurture life, they also threaten it. When an underwater volcano erupts with great force, it can release vast amounts of gas, especially carbon dioxide and methane, into the ocean. If concentrations rise high enough, they can suffocate marine life in entire regions. Fish die in masses, corals bleach, ecosystems collapse. Sometimes these gases reach the surface and escape into the atmosphere, where they contribute to climate shifts. One hidden eruption can alter temperatures across continents, trigger strange weather patterns, or acidify waters upon which countless species depend. The paradox is relentless. The same vents that sustain unique creatures also carry the potential to erase them. Humanity, too, is vulnerable to this hidden fury. Coastal populations may seem far removed from the abyss, but the ocean is a master at carrying consequences. A submarine eruption can displace enough water to generate tsunamis that travel thousands of kilometers, striking shores with devastating force. Entire villages can vanish in minutes, harbors destroyed, economies shattered. The people may blame the sea, but the true culprit lies deeper. A volcano that erupted in solitude, indifferent to human suffering. The Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha eruption reminded the world of this truth. Though much of the eruption was hidden underwater, its shockwaves circled the globe and its tsunamis reached distant shores. Humanity was reminded that it does not live apart from the abyss but upon it. The fire of the deep is not a myth, it is a neighbor. And like all neighbors, it can be generous or merciless. The life that thrives around vents is fragile in another sense as well. It exists only as long as the volcanic activity continues. When a vent goes cold, the ecosystem it sustains collapses. Creatures either adapt and migrate to new vents or perish. Whole communities vanish within decades, proving that permanence is an illusion. This impermanence is not tragedy but truth. The earth itself lives in cycles, and the creatures that survive are those that accept change. There is a lesson here for humanity too, for we cling to stability as if it were eternal, building cities, economies, and identities as though they were fixed. But the abyss whispers another truth. Change is the only constant, and to resist it is folly. To laugh at this cosmic joke is to find wisdom, for the devil himself would smile knowing that the creatures of the abyss accept change better than humans do. Another dimension of this paradox lies in the minerals released by underwater volcanoes. Iron, manganese, sulfur, and countless other elements pour into the ocean, fertilizing waters that would otherwise be barren. These minerals drift with currents, feeding plankton, the base of the marine food chain. Without these volcanic gifts, the oceans would starve, and with them, much of life on Earth would collapse. Every fish in the sea owes a debt to underwater eruptions. Every whale song, every coral reef, every seagull cry is in some way an echo of fire hidden beneath the waves. And humanity, reliant on fish for sustenance, reliant on oxygen produced by plankton, is in turn indebted to the abyss. It is a humbling thought. The hamburgers we eat, the crops we grow, the air we breathe are all linked to underwater volcanoes. Without them, our civilization would suffocate. Yet how rarely do we think of this truth? We remember gods of sky and thunder, but forget the gods of fire beneath the ocean. Perhaps those gods laugh at our ignorance. Philosophers have long argued that opposites define existence, and nowhere is this more vivid than in the abyss. Fire and water, destruction and creation, life and death, permanence and impermanence. All these opposites merge at underwater volcanoes. They do not cancel one another, they collaborate. Fire creates the conditions for water to teem with life. Water tempers fire, shaping it into land. Death of one ecosystem becomes birth of another. The abyss is not chaos, it is choreography. And humanity is part of the dance, whether it notices or not. Scientists studying vents have discovered entire branches of the tree of life that exist nowhere else on Earth. These lineages diverged millions of years ago, evolving in isolation, thriving in conditions alien to us. To peer at them through submarine cameras is to look into an alternate world, a world where life followed different rules. It forces us to ask, if life can thrive here, where else in the universe might it thrive? On moons like Europa or Enceladus, where oceans lie beneath ice crusts, volcanic activity may sustain similar vents. The creatures we see in our abyss might have cousins in the abysses of distant worlds. Thus, underwater volcanoes are not just geological curiosities, they are keys to the cosmic question of life itself. Their plumes are whispers not only of Earth's story but of the possibility that the universe is alive in ways we have yet to dream. The humor in this is that humanity spends billions sending telescopes into space, searching for signs of life, while beneath its own oceans, life thrives in alien forms, waiting to be acknowledged. Perhaps the devil enjoys this irony too, watching as humans look outward while ignoring the miracles beneath their feet. The lesson is clear. To know the universe, we must first know our own world, and to know our world, we must descend into the fire of the abyss. The power of underwater volcanoes also reveals a moral metaphor. Just as vents sustain life while threatening it, so too do our passions sustain and threaten us. The fire within the human heart can create beauty, art, love, progress, yet unchecked it can destroy relationships, societies, and even civilizations. The abyss becomes a mirror. When we stare into it, we do not only see lava and plumes, we see ourselves. The paradox of destruction and creation lives within us too. And perhaps that is why these stories resonate so deeply, because they remind us that the world outside and the world within are reflections of the same truth. To deny the fire is to deny our own essence. To embrace it wisely is to become creators. Ultimately, the underwater volcanoes are teachers, though their lessons are written not in words but in molten rock and shifting seafloors. They teach that life thrives in unlikely places, that change is constant, that opposites collaborate, that humility is wisdom. They teach that creation and destruction are not enemies but partners in an eternal dance. And as humanity listens, it may begin to see itself not as separate from nature but as part of it, not as master but as child. And that child, if wise, will learn to honor the parents of fire and water that birthed it. Beneath the veil of the oceans, the fire of underwater volcanoes has long shaped not only the geology of the planet, but also the stories, myths, and tragedies of humanity. Though hidden from view, their influence has reached the surface countless times in waves of destruction and whispers of inspiration. When ancient peoples stood upon shores gazing at the horizon, they could not see the colossal furnaces erupting beneath the waves, yet they felt their consequences in the form of monstrous tsunamis, sudden islands, shifting coastlines, and unexplained tempests. To them these events were the voices of gods or the anger of spirits, and thus the hidden volcanoes of the abyss became the foundation of myths that still echo today. The most dramatic expression of this hidden power is the tsunami. When a submarine volcano erupts violently enough, it displaces enormous volumes of water, creating waves that race across the oceans at speeds faster than an airplane. To the unsuspecting villages along distant coasts, these waves arrive without warning, transforming calm seas into walls of death. Entire populations have been erased by such events, their histories swallowed, their ruins left as silent testimony. The human tendency is to personify these catastrophes, to give them names and motives. Ancient Polynesians spoke of sea gods who punished arrogance. Japanese chronicles describe dragon kings stirring in the deep. Mediterranean cultures told of Poseidon striking the seafloor with his trident, shaking the waters with rage. Behind these myths lay the truth of volcanic eruptions unseen but felt, explosions hidden beneath the waves that humanity could not explain but could not ignore. One of the most haunting legends is that of Atlantis, a great civilization said to have vanished beneath the sea in a single catastrophic night. Scholars debate its origins, but many suspect it echoes memories of volcanic cataclysms. The eruption of Thera in the second millennium before Christ shattered the island of Santorini, sending tsunamis across the Aegean, devastating Minoan cities, and altering climates across the Mediterranean. Though Thera was not entirely submerged, the scale of its eruption inspired myths of entire worlds sinking into the ocean. Multiply that by countless unseen submarine eruptions across history, and it is easy to understand how cultures wove stories of civilization swallowed whole, of gods hurling fire into the sea. These stories were not mere inventions. They were interpretations of trauma, attempts to make sense of invisible forces that dictated life and death. Even in recent centuries, the hidden hand of underwater volcanoes has shaped events. The eruption of Krakatoa in the 19th century was partly submarine, and its shockwaves circled the Earth. The eruption generated tsunamis that killed tens of thousands, yet its greatest impact may have been psychological. Skies across the world turned red for months. Sunsets became apocalyptic, and artists and poets captured the eerie beauty. Paintings of crimson skies inspired literature, sermons, and even movements of thought. The Earth itself had become an artist, using volcanic ash as its palette, and humanity responded with awe and fear. But for every Krakatoa, there are countless eruptions never recorded, their tsunamis lost to memory, their effects buried in oral traditions. When Pacific Islanders tell tales of islands that rose and sank, when Norse sagas speak of seas boiling, when African tribes recall rivers of fire beneath waters, they are not fabricating fantasy, they are remembering events that science is only now uncovering. Submarine volcanoes are archaeologists of myth, their eruptions leaving layers not only in rock but in memory. The irony is that the most hidden forces produce the most enduring legends. Humanity fears what it cannot see, and it explains the unseen through story. Thus the abyss has always been a theater of imagination. Monsters like the Kraken or Leviathan may have their roots in the terror of waters disturbed by eruptions. When sailors saw the sea roil without storm, when waves rose without wind, they imagined colossal beasts beneath them. In truth, the beast was geological, a mountain exploding, a vent releasing gases, a ridge splitting apart. Yet the myth endures, a poetic interpretation of geology. The devil himself would chuckle at this, for he knows that fear often cloaks ignorance, and ignorance often breeds the most vivid stories. Beyond myth, the practical consequences of submarine eruptions have shaped human survival. Entire fisheries have collapsed when volcanic gases suffocated waters. Crops have failed in distant lands after climatic shifts triggered by submarine ash and gas emissions. In such times, societies turn to religion, seeking explanations, offering sacrifices. They did not know that the culprit lay in the abyss, that their fates were entangled with mountains hidden beneath the sea. This hidden interconnection continues today. In the modern world, we imagine ourselves insulated from nature by technology, yet a single submarine eruption can remind us of our fragility. In 2022, the eruption of Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai showed the global reach of such events. The shockwave circled the planet 4 times. Atmospheric pressure changed in cities thousands of kilometers away, and satellites captured images that looked more like cosmic explosions than earthly ones. For weeks, the news cycle spoke of the eruption as if the Earth had briefly reminded humanity of its power, and indeed it had. The eruption was a messenger from the abyss, reminding us that the ground beneath the oceans is not silent, that history is still being written in fire. These events raise philosophical questions as well. If the most powerful forces are unseen, how should humanity orient its sense of reality? We live in cultures obsessed with visibility, with spectacle, with what can be measured and displayed. Yet the greatest powers lie in the hidden. Volcanoes erupting in darkness, tectonic plates shifting in silence, currents carving landscapes over millennia. To ignore the unseen is to misunderstand existence. And so the abyss teaches us humility. It teaches that not everything real is visible, not everything important is measurable. The hidden matters, the invisible sustains, the unseen shapes us. This lesson reaches into human psychology as well. Our lives, too, are shaped by hidden eruptions, subconscious pressures, unseen battles. The myths of Leviathan and Atlantis are not only about the sea, they are about the human soul. We fear our own depths, our own hidden fires, and we tell stories to explain them. To study underwater volcanoes is to study ourselves. The humor in this lies in our tendency to dramatize what we cannot control. We name it, mythologize it, turn it into art. We rarely accept it simply as it is. Yet perhaps the greatest wisdom lies in accepting the abyss without embellishment. A volcano is not angry, it is not vengeful, it simply is. Its eruption is not punishment, it is process. Its destruction is not moral, it is natural. To project human motives onto it is to misunderstand, yet it is also to reveal our own need for meaning. The abyss does not need meaning, but we do, and so we weave myths, and perhaps that too is beautiful, for it shows that even in our ignorance we create art, even in our fear we create poetry. In this way, submarine volcanoes have shaped not only land and climate, but imagination and culture. They are co-authors of human history, silent partners in our myths, invisible muses for our stories. The next time one erupts and the sea roils, it will not only alter the seafloor, it will alter the narratives we tell, the fears we whisper, the art we create. In this sense, every eruption is both geological and cultural. It sculpts rock and it sculpts memory. The abyss is both laboratory and library. Humanity has barely opened its pages. Beneath the restless skin of the oceans, the underwater volcanoes are not finished with humanity, for they are not relics of a forgotten earth, but promises of what is yet to come. These mountains of fire and darkness are not only reminders of creation and destruction, they are laboratories of the future, places where humanity might one day draw energy, discover new forms of life, and even find clues to survival beyond Earth itself. To contemplate them is not to look backward into geological history alone, but forward into the destiny of our species. For the story of underwater volcanoes is not only a story of the Earth, it is a story of possibility. Imagine the energy contained within the veins of magma that course beneath the seafloor. Every eruption that rises unseen into the dark waters is a release of heat that could power civilizations many times over. Humanity speaks often of renewable energy, of the need to shift from fossil fuels to cleaner sources. Yet beneath the oceans lies a vast reservoir of geothermal potential, a furnace of fire that never ceases. A power station built not by engineers, but by the planet itself. If one day humanity learns to safely harness the heat of underwater volcanoes, it will tap into a source that dwarfs wind, solar, or coal. It is ironic, almost humorous, that while we cover our deserts with mirrors and our hills with turbines, the greatest generator on Earth burns quietly beneath waves, ignored like a poor relative. The devil himself would smirk at this oversight, for he knows that humanity is often blind to what is beneath its feet, chasing the distant while neglecting the immediate. Yet perhaps in the centuries to come, as technology advances, humans will send machines into the abyss not merely to study but to harvest. The seafloor may become dotted with stations that draw energy from volcanic vents, turning fire into electricity, sustaining cities above. Of course, this vision carries risks, for to meddle with fire is always dangerous. Harnessing volcanoes is like taming a lion. One wrong move and catastrophe follows. But the potential is there, waiting. More profound still is the possibility that the vents and volcanoes of Earth teach us about life beyond Earth. When scientists peer into the abyss and see ecosystems thriving without sunlight, they are given a glimpse of what might exist on other worlds. The icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn, Europa, and Enceladus conceal oceans beneath their frozen crusts. If volcanic activity exists there as it does here, then hydrothermal vents could sustain alien ecologies. The worms and shrimp of Earth's abyss may have cousins in those distant seas. In this sense, every submarine eruption studied on Earth is also a lesson about the cosmos. The abyss is not only Earth's hidden heart, it is a mirror of possible universes. Humanity builds telescopes to look into the heavens, but perhaps the truest telescope is the submersible, descending into the darkness to see the reflection of other worlds. The paradox is delightful. To know the stars, we must know our own abyss. And in that abyss we find clues not only to existence, but to resilience. The creatures of the vents teach us that life adapts, that it finds niches in what seems impossible, that it flourishes in the very places we call uninhabitable. This lesson is urgent in an age when humanity confronts crises of climate, disease, and resource scarcity. If worms can thrive in boiling poison, can we not adapt to challenges less severe? If bacteria can feast on sulfur in eternal darkness, can we not find sustenance in hardship? The abyss tells us that survival is not the privilege of the comfortable, but the art of the adaptable. To ignore this is to ignore our best teacher. Underwater volcanoes are also metaphors for the hidden challenges of the modern world. Just as eruptions occur unseen until their consequences reach the surface, so too do many of our crises brew in silence until they explode. Climate change, social inequality, technological disruption, all are volcanoes beneath the waves of society, ignored until their eruptions reshape the landscape. To study the abyss is to learn vigilance, to learn that what is hidden may be most important. There is humor in our blindness, of course. We fret over small daily inconveniences while beneath us the very crust of the earth splits apart. We panic at delays in traffic while ridges thousands of kilometers long are opening and closing in eternal rhythm. The devil laughs at our priorities, yet perhaps he also pities us, for he knows that wisdom comes not from ignoring the abyss but from listening to it. The myths of the future may well be written not about gods of thunder or fire, but about the gods of geothermal energy, the deities of vents, the muses of magma, Humanity may look back and say that it was in the 21st or 22nd century that it first realized the abyss was not only terror but salvation. Perhaps new Atlanteans will rise, not as victims of sinking but as pioneers of harnessing. Perhaps new myths will be written of people who drew strength from the fire of the seafloor. This is not fantasy but potential, waiting. And yet caution remains, for to take from the abyss without reverence is to invite disaster. The volcanic fire is patient but not tame. It will not tolerate arrogance. If humanity approaches it with greed, drilling recklessly, building without foresight, then catastrophe will follow. Tsunamis, collapses, eruptions will remind us who is master. The abyss demands respect. It is teacher and parent, not servant. To accept this is wisdom. The future of underwater volcanoes is also tied to exploration. Submarines, drones, sensors, satellites, all are tools that will expand our knowledge. Already we have mapped only a fraction of the ocean floor. What remains is vast and mysterious. To map it fully will take centuries, but each discovery will reshape our view of Earth. The tallest mountain on the planet is not Everest but Mauna Kea, rising from the seafloor of Hawaii, taller than Everest when measured from base to summit. Countless such giants await discovery, volcanoes larger than anything on land, hidden like kings in exile. Imagine what it will mean when humanity finally sees them in their full scale. Our maps will change, our understanding of Earth will change, and with it perhaps our sense of humility. For how can one boast of dominion when one does not even know the land upon which one lives? The abyss reminds us that ignorance is vast, and knowledge is a frontier, always. In this sense, the underwater volcano is not only geological but spiritual. It is a call to curiosity, to exploration, to humility. It invites us to descend not only physically but intellectually, to embrace mystery instead of fearing it. The fire beneath the waves is not merely fire, it is symbol. It tells us that beneath appearances lie depths, beneath stability lies chaos, beneath chaos lies creation. To meditate on this is to prepare for the future, not with arrogance, but with wonder. As humanity marches into an uncertain century, with crises mounting and hopes fragile, perhaps the greatest resource we can draw upon is not coal or oil or even magma, but perspective. The abyss gives perspective. It tells us we are small but significant, fragile but adaptable, fleeting but meaningful. It tells us that fire and water are not enemies but collaborators, that destruction is also creation, that endings are also beginnings. This is not only geology, it is philosophy, and philosophy is the foundation of resilience. In the end, the underwater volcanoes are promises. Promises that the Earth is alive and will continue to be alive long after us. Promises that life is more adaptable than we imagine. Promises that the future is not barren but fertile with possibility. They are explosions hidden beneath the waves, yes, but they are also lanterns hidden beneath the waves, lights that illuminate paths not yet taken. Humanity may or may not walk those paths, but they exist. And to know they exist is already hope. Beneath the dark shroud of the oceans, the volcanoes have long played a role not just as architects of creation but also as agents of annihilation. In their fire lies the paradox of existence itself, for what brings forth life can also erase it in a single gesture. To trace the history of Earth is to trace the rhythm of underwater volcanoes, for their eruptions are woven into the record of mass extinctions, sudden die-offs, shifts in climate, and equally into the bursts of new life that follow destruction. They are both the scythe and the seed, harvesting the fragile abundance of one era only to plant the beginnings of the next. The story of extinction is often told through images of dinosaurs, asteroids, and burning skies, but hidden within that story is the role of the abyss. Beneath the waves, vast eruptions have released torrents of gas, clouds of ash, and surges of lava that altered oceans and skies alike. Consider the Permian extinction 250 million years ago, the greatest die-off in Earth's history, when more than 90% of species vanished. Though often attributed to volcanic activity on land in Siberia, evidence suggests the oceans too played their part. Underwater eruptions released immense volumes of carbon dioxide and methane, poisoning waters, suffocating marine life, acidifying the seas. The abyss was not innocent. It was a participant in the purge. And yet, from that devastation arose the ancestors of modern life, survivors shaped by the fire. The irony is clear. Without the extinction event, the path to mammals and eventually humans might never have unfolded. The abyss destroyed, and the abyss prepared. The Cretaceous extinction, too, though linked to an asteroid, was amplified by volcanic activity, both on land and below the oceans. The combination of impact and fire reshaped climates, turned forests to ash, and drowned coastlines. Once again, volcanoes hidden beneath the waves contributed to a death sentence for countless species, but also to the conditions that allowed others to thrive. In the ashes of one age, the seeds of another are sown, and the abyss is both graveyard and womb. It is easy to think of extinction as tragedy, and indeed it is for those who perish, yet in the broader rhythm of the earth it is part of a cycle. Volcanoes remind us that permanence is illusion, that stability is temporary, that what exists today may vanish tomorrow. To fear this is natural, but to understand it is wisdom. The devil would grin at this thought, for he knows humanity clings desperately to permanence, yet the world itself is built on impermanence. We are children of fire and water, of change itself, and our attempts to resist change are as futile as trying to hold back the tide. The ecological consequences of submarine eruptions are profound even on smaller scales. When gases flood waters, oxygen levels plummet, creating dead zones where fish suffocate and corals bleach. Entire food webs collapse. And yet within years or decades life returns, often in different forms, often richer in diversity. The very destruction that seemed absolute becomes the canvas for renewal. Corals regrow, fish recolonize, plankton bloom. In this rhythm, the abyss teaches resilience. It teaches that endings are beginnings disguised. Humanity fears endings as if they were final, yet in truth they are transformations. The seafloor itself bears witness to this cycle. Ancient lava fields, once barren, now host vibrant reefs. Black basalt crusts become foundations for corals that glow in colors unseen on land. Fish schools weave among formations once birthed in fire. Predators hunt in landscapes that were once rivers of molten rock. The abyss transforms its scars into gardens, as if to remind us that beauty is often born of violence. The history of extinctions also intersects with climate, for underwater volcanoes have repeatedly altered the balance of gases that regulate heat. When eruptions release carbon dioxide, warming follows. When sulfur spreads into the atmosphere, cooling ensues. These shifts have triggered ice ages, melted glaciers, raised and lowered seas. Human history itself has been nudged by such events, though rarely recognized. Crops failed, empires weakened, migrations began, and behind it all the abyss may have whispered with fire. The hidden power of underwater volcanoes is that they do not act in isolation but in chorus with land volcanoes, with asteroids, with currents and winds. The earth is a symphony of forces, and the abyss provides the bass notes, deep and resonant, shaping the rhythm of life and death. To ignore this is to misunderstand our own story. The irony is that humanity fears catastrophes in headlines, earthquakes, eruptions, storms, yet the greatest catastrophes unfold invisibly beneath the waves. Entire epochs have ended because of forces no human eye ever saw, and yet, from those endings came us. To contemplate this is to confront humility, but also gratitude. Without the abyss, we would not exist. Without its fire, our line would have ended before it began. The abyss is not merely destructive. It is parental in a severe way, harsh but generous, unforgiving but creative. Perhaps the greatest lesson lies here, that destruction is not always the opposite of creation, but part of it. To live is to be part of cycles larger than ourselves. To resist them is folly. To learn from them is wisdom. The creatures of the vents embody this truth. They thrive in landscapes that collapse. They migrate when vents go cold. They adapt or perish. Their resilience is a lesson written in biology. Humanity, facing its own crises, would do well to imitate them. When the familiar collapses, adapt. When the comfortable disappears, create anew. When endings come, recognize the beginnings within them. This is not merely survival, it is life itself. Extinction on cosmic scales also teaches us about possibility elsewhere. If life can survive multiple mass extinctions on Earth, perhaps life elsewhere can survive cataclysms too. The abyss shows us that resilience is universal. The creatures of other oceans, beneath ice crusts or distant suns, may have endured their own volcanic purges and rebirths. To study our abyss is to glimpse theirs. The humor in all this lies in perspective. Humans fear death individually and collectively, yet the planet itself treats death as transition. The abyss laughs at our obsession with permanence, at our desperate attempts to preserve what cannot be preserved. And yet it also offers comfort. Nothing is wasted, nothing is lost, everything transforms. The lava becomes rock, the rock becomes reef, the reef becomes home, the home becomes memory. The cycle is endless. To meditate on underwater volcanoes is to meditate on mortality. They are reminders that endings are real but not final, that life is fragile but resilient, that destruction is painful but fertile. In this meditation there is both terror and peace. Terror, because we are reminded of our smallness. Peace, because we are reminded that our smallness is part of a larger rhythm. To live with this awareness is to live with humility and courage. The abyss does not promise safety, but it promises continuity. The fire will burn, the water will flow, the cycle will continue. Our task is not to control it, but to harmonize with it. Humanity's future may depend on how well we learn this lesson. Beneath the endless curtain of waves, the ocean floor rises and falls in ways so immense that even the tallest mountains on land seem like small toys in comparison. Here the fire of underwater volcanoes has sculpted landscapes of such scale and majesty that they redefine what it means to imagine the Earth. It is easy to look at the continents and believe they are the true face of the planet, but in truth, the continents are merely islands themselves, temporary protrusions above the real surface which lies beneath the seas. There in the darkness, the volcanic forces of the abyss have raised mountains taller than Everest, carved ridges longer than the distance across the entire Pacific, and built plateaus vast enough to swallow nations. This is the architecture of the hidden world, the silent monuments of the ocean that remind us of both our ignorance and our smallness. Consider the Hawaiian Emperor Seamount Chain, a line of volcanic islands and submerged mountains stretching thousands of kilometers across the Pacific. Each island and seamount is a chapter in the story of a single hotspot, a plume of magma rising from the mantle. As the Pacific plate drifted slowly over this hotspot, volcano after volcano erupted, building peaks that once broke the surface before sinking back under the waves. The Hawaiian Islands that we know today are merely the most recent notes in a symphony that has played for tens of millions of years. When one walks along the beaches of Hawaii, it is easy to think of paradise, of beauty, of stability. Yet beneath those palms lies a conveyor belt of creation and destruction that never ceases. The devil would laugh at this irony, for humanity vacations upon landscapes that are in truth stages of volcanic growth and decay, paradise written by fire. Now consider Mauna Kea, one of those Hawaiian giants. From base on the seafloor to summit above the clouds, it measures over 10 kilometers, taller than Everest. Yet to most of the world it is simply a mountain on an island, not the greatest mountain on Earth. The truth is hidden because the ocean conceals most of its body. How many other giants lie unseen, greater still than Mauna Kea, waiting in silence? Humanity crowns Everest as the tallest, but the abyss knows better. The abyss is full of kings ignored by human eyes, kings who wear crowns of lava and mantles of basalt, kings who never demand worship yet who rule the geography of the planet. Beyond mountains, there are the oceanic plateaus, formed by eruptions so vast that they poured lava across areas larger than countries. The Ontong Java Plateau, for example, covers an area larger than Alaska, built by submarine eruptions that released more lava than all the eruptions in human history combined. Imagine such a flood of fire beneath the waves, not for hours or days, but for hundreds of thousands of years. The ocean boiled, the atmosphere shifted, life struggled, and yet from that chaos the earth emerged with a new shape. Plateaus like Ontong Java are reminders that scale itself is relative, that human imagination is often too small for geological truth. What we call vast is a mere spark to the abyss. What we call catastrophe is Tuesday to the volcanoes of the seafloor. Then there is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a continuous volcanic chain that stretches more than 60,000 kilometers around the globe, the longest mountain range on Earth. If it stood above water, it would dominate every map, a scar wrapping the planet, visible from space. Yet because it lies beneath the waves, it is ignored, absent from schoolroom maps, absent from our imaginations. To stand upon its summit with a submersible is to stand upon the spine of the world, to feel the pulse of tectonic plates pulling apart, to witness magma rising into darkness. Here the earth is in labor constantly, birthing new crust. To think of it is to realize that the planet itself is not a static ball but a restless organism, alive in every seam. And still humanity lives as if the earth were stable, as if permanence were guaranteed. The abyss chuckles at our delusion. Alongside ridges and plateaus there are the seamounts, numbering in the tens of thousands, perhaps even hundreds of thousands, dotting the seafloor like stars in a galaxy. Some are solitary, others form chains, some rise high enough to disturb currents and influence climate. They are the unacknowledged architecture of the world, shaping flows of water that in turn shape weather, ecosystems, and human life. To ignore them is to misunderstand not only the ocean but the sky, for clouds and storms are in part children of the mountains hidden beneath the waves. The abyss is not separate from the air we breathe, it is its sculptor. Imagine if humanity could drain the oceans for a day and see what lies beneath. The sight would be overwhelming, ranges longer than any on land, peaks taller, valleys deeper, plains vaster. The continents would look like small islands, scattered upon a surface dominated by volcanic architecture. The true Earth would be revealed, and it would not resemble the maps we know. It would look more alien than Mars, more chaotic than any dream, more magnificent than any painting. Perhaps then humanity would learn humility, realizing that it has lived in ignorance, worshipping small mountains while ignoring great ones, fearing minor tremors while unaware of vast eruptions. There is humor in this too, for we call our world familiar when in truth it is mostly unknown. We speak of conquering nature while standing upon ground we have never even mapped. The devil would shake his head in amusement, knowing that ignorance and pride make easy companions. The landscapes forged by underwater volcanoes also remind us of time. Each ridge, plateau, and seamount is the result of millions of years of eruptions. The Hawaiian chain stretches back more than 70 million years. The Ontong Java Plateau was built 120 million years ago. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge has been active for hundreds of millions of years. These timescales dwarf human history. Empires rise and fall in centuries, religions in millennia, but the abyss works in tens and hundreds of millions of years. To contemplate this is to feel both small and free. Small, because our dramas are fleeting. Free, because our failures too are fleeting. In the face of such time scales, our anxieties lose weight. We are sparks in a fire that has burned for eons. The abyss teaches perspective, and perspective is liberation. These landscapes also influence life more directly. The ridges provide nutrients through hydrothermal vents, feeding ecosystems that ripple outward. Seamounts create upwellings of water that bring nutrients to the surface, feeding plankton blooms that sustain fish and whales. Plateaus alter currents, shaping climate patterns that determine harvests and famines on land. The architecture of the abyss is not abstract, it is intimate, tied to every bite of food, every breath of air. Humanity's survival is woven into the landscapes it does not see. To recognize this is to awaken. The abyss demands acknowledgement, not worship, respect, not fear. It is not malevolent, it is not benevolent. It simply is. Its mountains are silent sermons, its plateaus are ancient scriptures, its ridges are eternal prayers written in fire. To descend into them is to enter a cathedral larger than any human structure, a temple where the priest is magma and the congregation is life itself. Here philosophy and geology merge, and wisdom is not spoken but erupted. Ultimately, the landscapes built by underwater volcanoes are gifts. They are the foundations upon which continents drift, the guides of currents, the homes of ecosystems, the sources of wonder. They are also reminders that our maps are lies of omission, showing only what lies above water. To know the Earth truly, we must redraw our maps with the ocean drained, with the ridges and seamounts revealed. Only then will we see the planet as it is, a volcanic world, restless and alive, with oceans as veils and fire as soul. Beneath the waves, humanity has always felt the pull of the abyss. The ocean is not merely a body of water, it is a mystery that whispers promises of secrets and treasures. Yet, for most of history, the seafloor was a place of imagination, not of knowledge. Mariners looked across the horizon and feared the depths, inventing stories of monsters and chasms without end. The truth was stranger and more magnificent than their myths, for beneath them lay entire mountain ranges, volcanoes, and ecosystems. But without the tools to descend, they had only dreams. The exploration of underwater volcanoes is thus a tale of curiosity colliding with limitation, of imagination finally meeting reality. For centuries, humans believed the seafloor to be flat and lifeless, a desert beneath the waves. Even as ships sailed across oceans, no one truly knew what lay beneath. Lines and weights were dropped into the water to measure depth, producing crude maps that suggested uniform plains. It was not until the 20th century, with the invention of sonar, that the hidden landscapes began to reveal themselves. When the first sound waves returned from the depths showing ridges and mountains, the scientific world was astonished. The ocean floor was not flat at all, but alive with geological drama. Suddenly, theories of plate tectonics found their evidence, and the abyss became central to the story of Earth. The discovery of the mid-Atlantic ridge confirmed that continents drift apart, that the Earth's crust is in motion, and that magma rises constantly from below. The abyss was no longer just mystery, it was revelation. Yet revelation demanded more than sonar. Humanity hungered to see. Submersibles became the next step, first unmanned, then manned. Machines like Alvin descended into the depths, carrying scientists to places no human had ever seen. They witnessed black smokers rising like chimneys, plumes of minerals billowing, strange creatures thriving. It was as if they had landed on another planet. The abyss turned out not to be barren but vibrant. The humor of this discovery lies in its timing. Humanity had sent rockets into space before it had sent humans to the deep ocean. We looked outward before we looked inward. The devil must have chuckled at this irony, for we seek distant mysteries while ignoring those beneath our feet. Yet when we finally looked, we saw not emptiness but abundance. Today, exploration continues with remotely operated vehicles, robots armed with cameras and sensors that descend miles into the dark. They beam back images of eruptions in progress, glowing fountains of lava freezing in seconds, landscapes shifting as magma bursts forth. Scientists watch in awe as the Earth remakes itself in real time. These images are priceless, not only scientifically but philosophically, for they remind us that the world is alive, dynamic, unpredictable. They remind us that stability is illusion. In the 21st century, dreams of colonizing the seafloor have begun to emerge. Some envision habitats built near hydrothermal vents, powered by geothermal energy, sustaining human communities in the deep. These visions are both inspiring and troubling, for they imagine a human presence in places where life already thrives in delicate balance. The question arises whether humanity can coexist with such ecosystems or whether it would destroy them. The abyss is generous but not forgiving. To live there would require humility, adaptability, and respect. Without these qualities, colonization would be arrogance, and arrogance would lead to downfall. The comparison to space exploration is inevitable. Just as we dream of colonies on Mars, we dream of colonies beneath the sea, Both environments are hostile. Both demand technology and courage. Both offer resources and knowledge. Yet the ocean is closer, richer, more immediate. It is our own alien world waiting to be explored. To ignore it while chasing distant planets is to overlook a frontier more profound than we admit. The exploration of underwater volcanoes also reflects our inner journeys. We descend into the abyss not only with machines but with imagination. Every image returned from the deep becomes a metaphor for our own hidden depths. The black smokers are symbols of resilience, the strange creatures symbols of adaptability, the eruptions symbols of transformation. To explore the abyss is to explore the human psyche. Just as we fear the ocean's darkness, we fear our own subconscious. Just as we marvel at its eruptions, we marvel at our own creativity. The abyss is mirror as much as frontier. Still, the practical stakes are enormous. The minerals deposited by vents could fuel industries. The geothermal energy could power cities. The biodiversity could inspire medicines. The knowledge could reshape our understanding of Earth. The abyss is not only philosophy, it is potential. Yet potential carries responsibility. To exploit without care would be to repeat mistakes made on land. The devil watches with anticipation, knowing humanity's tendency toward greed. Will we treat the abyss as resource to be plundered, or as partner to be respected? The answer will shape not only our future but the future of the oceans. The most remarkable aspect of this exploration is how little we still know. More than 80% of the ocean remains unmapped, unexplored, unseen. For every volcano we have studied, there are hundreds unvisited. For every vent we have sampled, there are countless others waiting. This ignorance is humbling. It means that the next great discovery could come tomorrow, that mysteries still abound, that wonder has not been exhausted. In a world where many believe everything has been discovered, the abyss proves otherwise. It is the final wilderness, the ultimate unknown. And perhaps that is why it is so compelling. The exploration of underwater volcanoes is not just science, it is adventure. It satisfies our hunger for the unknown, our need to test limits, our longing to stand at the edge of mystery. It is the same impulse that drove explorers across oceans, mountaineers up peaks, astronauts into space. It is the human spirit reaching beyond itself. To see a submarine eruption with our own eyes is to see the Earth's heart exposed. It is to witness creation in raw form, without filters, without metaphors. It is to stand in awe of power and to feel both fear and exhilaration. Few experiences can rival it. Perhaps one day tourism will descend into the abyss, with submarines carrying passengers to witness eruptions like safaris of fire. Perhaps documentaries will become more immersive, bringing the abyss into living rooms. Perhaps the line between science and art will blur as images of lava fountains become canvases for imagination. Already artists are inspired by the footage, poets by the metaphors, philosophers by the paradoxes. The abyss enriches culture as much as science. Ultimately, the story of exploration is the story of humility. We descend into the abyss thinking to conquer, but we return conquered. We think to map, but we return unmapped ourselves, changed by what we have seen. For in the darkness beneath the waves we find not only volcanoes but perspective. We find that the earth is greater than us, that mystery is inexhaustible, that wonder is eternal. The abyss does not end when our machines resurface. It continues within us. Its images linger in dreams. Its lessons echo in thoughts. Its paradoxes shape our philosophies. To explore it is to be transformed. Beneath the rolling waves of the modern ocean, the ancient breath of underwater volcanoes still shapes the world of today as surely as it shaped the primeval earth. For centuries their influence was myth and rumor. But in the 21st century, when humanity imagines itself master of technology and insulated from nature, the hidden fire continues to remind us that we are still children of the abyss. It is ironic that we measure progress in skyscrapers, satellites, and digital networks, yet every message sent, every stock market transaction, every video call travels through cables that rest upon the seafloor. fragile threads stretched across volcanic landscapes that could shift or erupt at any moment. The world is connected by fiber optic veins, and those veins lie upon the body of a restless planet. Imagine a cable stretching across the mid-Atlantic ridge, carrying billions of words, numbers, and images, linking continents in invisible conversation. It passes over ridges where magma seeps, across seamounts that rise like sleeping gods, through trenches where pressures crush. At any time, an eruption could cut that cable, severing connections, plunging nations into silence. The economy of the world could stumble not because of politics or warfare, but because a volcano erupted unseen miles below the waves. In that moment, the fragility of our civilization would be revealed, for our digital empire rests upon molten foundations. The devil must smile at this, for humanity built its new Tower of Babel, not in the sky, but on the seabed, and like all towers it is vulnerable to fire. Beyond cables there are the shipping routes, the arteries of global trade. Every day thousands of ships cross oceans carrying oil, food, cars, electronics, the lifeblood of modern society. Beneath them volcanoes stir. When they erupt, they can alter currents, release pumice rafts that drift for months, or generate tsunamis that capsize vessels. A single eruption in the wrong place could disrupt shipping lanes, strand goods, and cripple economies. The world is more dependent on these routes than most realize, for more than 90% of trade travels by sea. Thus, a hidden eruption is not merely geological, it is economic. It is a reminder that globalization itself is tethered to forces beyond its control. Consider the eruption of Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai in 2022. Though it lasted only hours, its shock waves circled the Earth. Its ash disrupted aviation. Its tsunamis damaged ports across the Pacific. The financial cost was measured in billions, the human cost in lives displaced, yet the greatest impact may have been psychological. For a moment, humanity glimpsed the truth that its infrastructure, its economy, its connectivity are all vulnerable to the abyss. And if a single eruption of moderate scale can cause such disruption, what of the larger eruptions hidden in the past and waiting in the future? The abyss keeps its secrets, but it does not keep them forever. Coastal cities are also at risk, for tsunamis generated by submarine eruptions can strike with little warning. Tokyo, New York, Jakarta, Manila, and countless others lie within reach of waves born in the deep. These cities are monuments of glass and steel, symbols of human dominance, yet they are vulnerable to mountains we cannot see. A wall of water does not negotiate with skyscrapers, it simply erases them. History already holds examples. Lisbon in 1755, devastated by waves and fire. Krakatoa in 1883, wiping villages from maps. Tonga in 2022, flooding islands. The next event is not a question of if, but when. Humanity prepares for earthquakes and hurricanes, yet few prepare for volcanoes beneath the sea. The irony is that we spend billions on defense against imagined enemies while ignoring the oldest enemy of all, the Earth itself. The abyss does not hate us, but it does not favor us either. It simply acts. The economic consequences extend further still. Fisheries collapse when eruptions alter currents or release gases. Tourism halts when coasts are scarred. Insurance markets tremble, governments spend, and citizens suffer. A plume of magma beneath the waves can ripple into unemployment lines, into inflation, into political unrest. It is astonishing to realize that a single unseen eruption could alter elections, topple governments, shift alliances. We imagine that power lies in parliaments and boardrooms, but true power lies in the mantle of the earth. The devil grins at our blindness. Even climate is touched by these hidden giants. Sulfur from eruptions can cool skies. Carbon dioxide can warm them, altering rainfall, harvests, and migrations. The world debates climate policy as if it were master of the thermostat, but beneath the waves the earth adjusts its own settings without asking permission. The abyss is not indifferent to our debates, it is simply beyond them. The modern era has not outgrown the influence of volcanoes, it has merely dressed it in new clothes. Our dependence on cables, trade, cities, and economies makes us more vulnerable, not less. A farmer in ancient times might lose a crop to ash and hunger would follow. Today, a trader might lose a network to eruption and markets would crash. The scale is larger, the fragility greater. The abyss has not changed, only we have, and in changing we have tied ourselves tighter to it. There is humor in this, if one chooses to see it. We pride ourselves on progress, yet we remain tethered to fire. We boast of independence, yet we are dependent on the crust beneath our feet. We dream of immortality, yet we remain mortal before magma. The abyss laughs at our contradictions, but it also offers perspective. For in truth, to be vulnerable is not weakness, it is reality. To accept it is strength. Perhaps the most profound influence of underwater volcanoes on modern life is psychological. They remind us that control is illusion, that certainty is fragile, that permanence is fantasy. In a world obsessed with prediction and management, the abyss whispers that not everything can be managed. This whisper can be terrifying but also liberating, for if we cannot control everything, perhaps we need not bear the weight of control. Perhaps we can live with humility, with resilience, with acceptance. To live with volcanoes is to live with uncertainty. To live with uncertainty is to live honestly. Humanity may one day learn this lesson, though it may take more eruptions to drive it home. Until then, the cables will hum, the ships will sail, the cities will grow, and the abyss will wait. Patient as ever, powerful as ever, ready to remind us with a single eruption that we live not upon a rock but upon a flame disguised by water. Beneath the surface of the ocean, hidden volcanoes breathe, pulse, and erupt, and it is impossible not to see in them a reflection of ourselves. For just as magma gathers silently in the dark before bursting forth with unstoppable force, so too do our minds carry pressure, energy, and desire that can remain unseen until the moment they break. The human psyche is not flat and calm. It is a restless seafloor, marked by ridges of memory, trenches of fear, plateaus of belief, and volcanoes of emotion. To understand the abyss is to understand the self, for both are made of hidden fires that shape what is visible. The quiet accumulation of magma beneath a volcano is like the quiet accumulation of thoughts and feelings beneath consciousness. Day by day, stresses build, resentments grow, ambitions swell. Outwardly, we appear calm, composed, steady, like the smooth surface of the ocean. But within the crust of our personality, pressure is mounting. And when the moment comes, when a trigger arrives, eruption is inevitable. Words are spoken in anger, decisions are made in haste, emotions overflow. Like lava, once released, they cannot be taken back. They burn, they reshape, they destroy, and create. The devil smiles at this, for he knows humans spend lifetimes trying to pretend their surface is the truth while ignoring the fire beneath. Yet pretending never extinguishes fire, it only delays eruption. The healthier path is to acknowledge the volcano within, to learn its rhythms, to release pressure constructively. To ignore it is to invite catastrophe. Creativity, too, is volcanic. Ideas build slowly in the dark. Fragments of thought accumulate, connections form unseen. Then suddenly inspiration erupts, often without warning, in a flood of words, images, or innovations. The artist is a volcano, the thinker too, the entrepreneur, the dreamer. Their eruptions are not of lava but of vision. The landscapes of culture are shaped as surely by these eruptions as the landscapes of Earth are shaped by magma. Some eruptions are small, unnoticed beyond a circle of friends. Others are cataclysmic, altering entire civilizations. To fear eruption is to fear creativity, yet to embrace it is to live fully. The pressure within is not enemy, but ally if harnessed. In psychology, the term catharsis describes this process, the release of built-up emotion bringing relief and transformation. It is the human eruption, the inner venting that allows renewal. Without catharsis, we are like volcanoes with sealed vents, pressure rising until destruction is catastrophic. With catharsis, we become like hydrothermal vents, constantly releasing energy in manageable bursts, sustaining ecosystems rather than annihilating them. Here the metaphor is rich. The difference between a healthy psyche and a repressed one is the difference between a vent that sustains life and a volcano that wipes it out. The abyss teaches us balance. There is also the matter of silence. A dormant volcano beneath the sea is not inactive, only unseen. Likewise, the calmest person may carry the fiercest storms within. We misjudge others by surfaces, forgetting that pressure is invisible. To live wisely is to recognize that everyone carries hidden fires, that kindness is not only virtue but necessity, for we never know when another's eruption may come. Compassion is a form of tectonic awareness. Anger, passion, creativity, despair, all are magma waiting. Sometimes eruption destroys, sometimes it fertilizes. Lava may burn forests, but in time it creates rich soil. Likewise, emotional eruptions may end relationships, careers, or illusions, but they also clear space for renewal, for truer growth. What seems catastrophe in the moment may later be seen as blessing. The abyss teaches patience with pain. There is humor here, too. How often do we say someone exploded, blew up, lost their cool? The language of eruption pervades everyday speech, as if subconsciously we recognize the volcano within. We joke about hot tempers, about pressure cookers, about blowing steam, but beneath the humor lies truth. We are creatures of pressure and release. To deny this is absurd, to accept it is wisdom. Even spirituality can be seen through this lens. Mystics speak of inner fire, of enlightenment bursting forth after years of discipline. The eruption of insight transforms the landscape of the soul. What was once barren becomes fertile. What was once dark becomes radiant. Just as underwater volcanoes create islands, inner eruptions create new selves. The old identity sinks, the new one rises. This is not destruction but rebirth. The devil might whisper that such eruptions are dangerous, that they make us unstable, but perhaps instability is not enemy but catalyst. To change is to erupt. To remain always calm is to stagnate. Balance lies not in suppressing eruption but in channeling it. Consider how pressure builds in society as well as individuals. When injustices pile up, when voices are silenced, when inequalities grow, the collective becomes a volcano. Revolutions erupt like submarine mountains, sudden and transformative. They alter landscapes of power. They redraw maps of nations. The abyss is political as well as personal. The magma of discontent cannot be ignored forever. Leaders who think otherwise are like sailors, ignoring the rumbling below. When the eruption comes, they are swept away. Humanity's relationship with its inner volcanoes is therefore central to survival. Ignoring them leads to destruction. Understanding them leads to creation. The ocean teaches this. The abyss reminds us daily, though we rarely listen. To meditate on underwater volcanoes is to meditate on the paradox of pressure, that what builds unseen can erupt in ways that destroy, but also in ways that create. It is to accept that life is not calm surface but restless depth. It is to live with awareness of hidden forces, both geological and psychological. And perhaps the greatest lesson is humility, for just as we cannot prevent the earth from erupting, we cannot always prevent ourselves from erupting either. We are part of the same system, built of the same materials, subject to the same laws. The fire within is not separate from the fire beneath. To fear it is futile, to learn from it is wise. Humor again finds its place here, for humans attend anger management classes, creativity workshops, therapy sessions, all elaborate rituals to deal with the volcano within. The abyss needs no such rituals, it simply erupts. Yet perhaps our rituals are eruptions too, controlled and safe, designed to prevent catastrophe. We build vents in our own lives, through art, sport, conversation, meditation. These are our hydrothermal chimneys, our ways of releasing pressure without devastation. They may seem trivial, but they are survival. To laugh at ourselves for needing them is healthy, for humor itself is release. Ultimately, the volcano within is not curse but gift. It gives us energy, passion, creativity, renewal. Without it we would be flat plains, lifeless and unchanging. With it we are landscapes in flux, dangerous but beautiful. To embrace this is to embrace life. Underwater volcanoes remind us that the greatest power is often hidden, that eruptions are part of growth, that pressure is not enemy but potential. To live as if we are calm oceans is to lie. To live as if we are restless abysses is to tell the truth. And truth, though unsettling, is liberating. Beneath the waves lie stories as old as fire itself, and while magma has no voice, it has always spoken to humanity through symbol and myth. The eruption of an underwater volcano is not merely a geological event, it is a spectacle that demands explanation. And for ancient cultures without seismographs or satellites, the only explanation was the language of God, demons, and spirits. The ocean boiled, islands rose from nowhere, tsunamis swept coasts, and humans responded the only way they could, with stories. These stories became myths, and these myths became religions. In them, the abyss found a place in human imagination as both cradle of life and dwelling of monsters. To the Greeks, the sea was not merely water but personality, ruled by Poseidon, whose trident shook the earth. When waves rose without warning, when the sea hissed with bubbles and smoke, when pumice floated on currents, the Greeks imagined that Poseidon was enraged. Volcanoes belonged to Hephaestus, god of fire and forge, but when the forge erupted beneath the sea, it was as if Hephaestus and Poseidon quarreled. Islands that appeared suddenly, like those of Santorini or Methana, were seen as gifts or warnings from the gods. These eruptions entered epic poetry and temple ritual, reminders that humans lived at the mercy of forces beyond them. The abyss was divine stage, and every eruption a performance. In Polynesia, the myths were more intimate, for the people lived upon islands born of fire. They saw volcanoes as ancestors, as embodiments of deities like Pele, goddess of fire and volcanoes, whose moods shaped the land. When lava flowed, it was Pele walking. When islands rose, it was Pele creating. To live in Polynesia was to live in constant dialogue with the abyss, to treat eruptions not as accidents but as conversations. Offerings were made, chants sung, respect given. The humor here is that while modern scientists speak of hotspots and plate tectonics, Polynesians spoke of Pele's journey, yet both tell the same story in different languages. The fire beneath moves, the islands rise and fall, the goddess travels. Myth and science are not enemies but translations. In Japan, the sea itself was home to dragons, powerful beings that stirred when eruptions shook the depths. Submarine eruptions were seen as the breathing of these dragons, their roars sending waves to shore. Fishermen prayed for calm, emperors built shrines, poets wrote verses about the anger of the sea. The dragons were not mere monsters, they were protectors too, guardians of balance. To disrespect them was to invite ruin, to honor them was to gain blessing. Again, the abyss was personified, made relatable, woven into culture. Among Norse sagas, the sea was both pathway and peril. Though little is written of underwater volcanoes specifically, the idea of Midgard's serpent, encircling the world, stirring the ocean with its coils, carries echoes of volcanic upheaval. When the serpent moves, the seas boil. When it rises, tsunamis strike. When it thrashes, fire emerges. It is myth as metaphor for geological truth. The abyss is restless, and when it stirs, the world changes. Indigenous peoples across the Pacific Northwest and beyond also told stories of mountains and seas in conflict. The birth of islands, the collapse of cliffs, the flooding of villages, all were explained through tales of spirits wrestling beneath the waves. These stories carried not just fear but instruction. Respect the sea, respect the land, do not build where the spirits dwell. Myth was not ignorance, it was survival strategy encoded in narrative. Even in the Mediterranean medieval chronicles record strange happenings, seas suddenly steaming, floating rocks covering harbors, coasts shaken by invisible forces. These were interpreted as omens, punishments, or signs of apocalypse. The church framed them as divine warnings, urging repentance. Communities prayed, fasted, built churches, hoping to appease the wrath beneath. The devil, too, found his place in these narratives, for what other explanation could there be for fire and water but infernal mischief? Ironically, the abyss was cast as hell itself, though it was simply earth being earth. The intertwining of myth and geology continued into modernity. When Krakatoa erupted in 1883, its effects were felt globally. In Europe and America, some saw the red sunsets as signs of divine anger, while others wrote poems of awe. Even with science advancing, the impulse to mythologize remained. The abyss resists being reduced to numbers alone. It demands narrative. In our time, new myths arise in the form of science fiction. Films and novels imagine creatures emerging from submarine volcanoes, alien worlds resembling our own seafloor, apocalypse triggered by hidden eruptions. These modern myths mirror the old, clothed in technology but rooted in the same awe. The abyss continues to inspire because it continues to overwhelm. Humor threads through these myths too. Consider sailors of past centuries who returned with tales of islands appearing and vanishing, confusing cartographers and enraging kings. Some maps filled with phantom islands, products of eruptions misunderstood. Whole expeditions searched for lands that never existed, chasing ghosts of magma. It is almost comedic, humanity trying to pin down the restless earth with ink and parchment. The abyss defies capture, reminding us that our certainty is often illusion. Myth also reveals humanity's need for meaning. An eruption is random, chaotic, destructive. To wrap it in story is to make it intelligible. Even today, when science explains the mechanics, we still ask why now, why here, why us? Myth provides comfort if not accuracy. The abyss becomes not indifferent geology but intentional narrative. We give it face, name, mood. This is not weakness but creativity. It is how humans live with uncertainty. Perhaps the deepest truth is that myths about underwater volcanoes are not wrong but symbolic. Poseidon, Pele, dragons, serpents, demons, all are masks of magma. They remind us that the earth is alive, that we are small, that respect is necessary. They carry wisdom, even when clothed in fantasy. And perhaps they carry more wisdom than our modern arrogance allows. For myth teaches humility, and humility is the beginning of wisdom. Ultimately, the myths show that the abyss is part of culture as well as nature. It is not just beneath our feet. It is within our stories, our rituals, our art. To study the history of myth is to study the history of human awe. And awe is perhaps the most essential human response to existence. Without awe, there is no reverence, no curiosity, no meaning. Underwater volcanoes inspire awe, and thus they inspire myth. They always will. Beneath the endless surface of the ocean, the world sings, though most ears will never hear it. For every eruption of an underwater volcano is not only fire and ash but sound, a deep rolling resonance that carries across the water for thousands of kilometers, a bass note in the symphony of the earth. The abyss is never silent, though humans once thought it so. It hums, groans, and rumbles, the product of magma breaking through crust, bubbles of gas bursting, rocks cracking, currents shifting. To listen to the ocean with hydrophones is to enter a concert hall older than humanity itself. Here the composers are volcanoes, the instruments are stone and water, the notes are shock waves and echoes. Some sounds are sharp like cymbals, explosive eruptions that shatter silence with percussive force. Others are long and sonorous like cellos, low-frequency rumbles that persist for hours, vibrating through the water like chants. Some are irregular improvisations, a stutter of cracks and bubbles, while others form rhythms as steady as drums. To hear them is to realize that Earth itself plays music, that the planet is not mute but expressive, and perhaps this is why so many cultures imagined gods in volcanoes, for music is always a language of power. The abyss plays in frequencies most humans cannot hear unaided, in infrasound and ultra-low hums. Whales, however, hear them. The songs of humpbacks and blue whales often overlap with the frequencies of volcanic sounds. Imagine that. Creatures of the deep listening to eruptions as part of their soundscape, weaving their own songs among the rhythms of magma. Perhaps the whales are not only singers but listeners, improvising duets with volcanoes. To imagine a whale adjusting its song in response to an eruption is to glimpse a kind of interspecies symphony. The devil would smirk at the thought that while humans obsess over chart-topping music, the true concert of the world is happening unnoticed in the dark. Hydrophones placed across oceans in the 20th century first revealed this music. Originally designed for warfare, listening for submarines, they recorded instead the groans of the earth. Scientists analyzing the tapes were astonished to hear eruptions, earthquakes, and even the crackling of icebergs. Suddenly the ocean was not silent but alive with sound. The idea of a silent deep was shattered forever. In this sense, warfare unwittingly gave birth to new awareness, turning weapons into instruments of science. It is a reminder that even human folly can lead to discovery. The sounds of underwater eruptions are more than curiosities, they are warnings too. Acoustic signals travel faster and farther in water than on land, allowing scientists to detect eruptions long before ships or satellites could. Listening to the abyss has become a method of prediction, a way of understanding patterns. The earth speaks, and if we listen, we learn. Ignoring the sound is ignorance. Attending to it is survival. There is poetry here. The planet whispers truths in music, but only those who place their ears to the water will hear. Artists, too, have drawn inspiration from these hidden sounds. Composers have sampled recordings of eruptions, weaving them into symphonies. Sound designers use them in films to evoke dread or awe. Poets describe the low rumble as the voice of gods or ancestors. Even electronic musicians have built tracks upon the rhythms of the abyss, layering beats over the pulse of magma. The idea that human dance floors move to the same rhythms as submarine eruptions is comic and profound. The abyss infiltrates culture not through myth alone but through vibration. Consider also the metaphorical resonance. The sounds of underwater volcanoes are like the subconscious mind, usually unheard, yet powerful, shaping mood and atmosphere. Just as in dreams hidden thoughts rise to the surface, so too in eruptions hidden magma announces itself through sound. Listening to the abyss is like listening to the self, learning to hear the rumbles of tension, the whispers of intuition, the cracks before eruption. Those who ignore these sounds in their psyche are surprised when explosions come. Those who learn to listen can anticipate and adapt. The abyss again is mirror. Scientists speak of the sound channel in the ocean, a layer where conditions allow sound to travel vast distances. Through this channel, the voices of whales and volcanoes can cross entire basins. It is as if the ocean itself is designed to carry messages, a planetary telephone line. Imagine eruptions in the Pacific heard in the Atlantic, the Earth itself conducting a global conversation. The thought is staggering, that the planet hums to itself constantly and we are incidental eavesdroppers. If humans could hear these sounds unaided, our sense of the world would change. Cities would not seem so loud, for beneath their noise we would hear a deeper symphony. Perhaps it is good we cannot always hear, for sanity might shatter. Yet recordings grant glimpses, and each glimpse is humbling. There is humor too, for while humans argue endlessly about what is music and what is noise, the earth does not distinguish. Its eruptions are both, depending on who listens. To the whale it is music, to the sailor it is terror, to the scientist it is data, to the poet it is metaphor. Meaning lies in the ear, not in the source. The most profound lesson of these sounds may be the reminder that the earth is not passive. Too often, humans treat the world as stage, silent and inert, upon which they act. But the sounds of volcanoes say otherwise. They reveal a planet that speaks, sings, roars. They reveal a partner in dialogue, not a backdrop. To live with this awareness is to live more humbly, more attentively. It is to hear the world not as object but as companion. Future technology may allow us to listen in even greater detail, to map eruptions through sound, to predict tsunamis, to understand the heartbeat of the planet. Perhaps one day humans will use these sounds not only for science but for therapy, meditation, even art. Imagine a concert hall where audiences listen to the live music of the earth streaming from hydrophones, feeling the rumble of magma in their bones. Perhaps then awe would replace indifference. Perhaps then respect would replace arrogance. Ultimately, the music of the abyss is a call to listen, not only to water and fire, but to ourselves, to each other, to the subtle vibrations that shape existence. Beneath the surface, the world is always singing. The question is whether we have the courage to stop our own noise long enough to hear. Beneath the dark waters, the hidden volcanoes are more than geology, they are prophecy. For to watch them is to see the future written in fire and water, to understand that the forces shaping continents and seas are also lessons for humanity's path forward. Every eruption is a parable, every ridge a metaphor, every vent a sermon in stone. To ignore these teachings is to walk blind into the challenges of tomorrow, for the abyss is not only past and present, but also future. Innovation itself is volcanic. It rises unseen, builds pressure, erupts suddenly, and reshapes landscapes. The technologies that define our era did not arrive gently, they erupted. The internet burst forth like a lava fountain, disrupting old terrains of communication. Renewable energy surges like magma, transforming economies. Artificial intelligence grows like a hidden seamount, invisible at first, then towering into dominance. Each innovation is a volcano, feared and resisted at first, later accepted as new land upon which to build. The abyss teaches us that eruption is not interruption but transformation. To resist is to be buried, to adapt is to thrive. Resilience, too, is volcanic. The ecosystems around hydrothermal vents survive in conditions humans once thought impossible. No sunlight, crushing pressures, toxic chemicals. Yet here life thrives, proving that resilience is not merely survival but flourishing in the harshest of environments. Humanity faces its own vents of pressure: climate change, inequality, political unrest. The question is not whether these conditions are harsh, but whether we will find ways to flourish within them. The abyss whispers that resilience is not passive endurance but active adaptation. It is finding new metabolisms, new strategies, new ways of being. It is turning poison into nourishment. If microbes can do it at vents, why not us in society? The future of humanity will depend not on avoiding pressure but on transforming it. Adaptation is volcanic too. Islands rise from eruptions, erode, sink, and new islands rise again. The Pacific is full of archipelagos that tell this story, chains of volcanoes each marking a stage in the dance of plate and plume. Humanity must learn this rhythm: to build, to lose, to build again. Nations may rise and fall, ideologies may erupt and fade, but the lesson is to continue the cycle, to see endings as preludes to beginnings. The abyss laughs at our fear of failure, for failure is simply subduction, the sinking of one crust to make way for new. To embrace this is to embrace renewal. The pressure beneath the crust mirrors the pressure within society. Innovation comes when pressure is released. Resilience comes when pressure is endured. Adaptation comes when pressure is redirected. The metaphor is inexhaustible. Underwater volcanoes are not only Earth's lungs, breathing new crust, they are Earth's diary, recording its method of growth. Humanity would do well to read this diary. There is humor in how closely our lives mirror the abyss. We complain of deadlines, traffic, stress, all while living upon a planet whose mantle is in constant upheaval. Compared to tectonic pressure, our stresses are comic. The abyss invites us to laugh at ourselves, to put our troubles in scale. Yet it also invites us to act, for ignoring pressure leads to eruption. The venting must occur, whether in geology or in psychology or in politics. Better to manage it, to release it wisely, than to pretend it does not exist. The future will require humility before these truths. Climate change, resource scarcity, mass migration, these are not stable seas, They are turbulent eruptions. We cannot expect permanence, we must expect flux. The abyss tells us that flux is not doom but normal. The earth has never been static, why should our future be? To live as if permanence is possible is to lie to ourselves. To live as if change is constant is to prepare. Perhaps the greatest gift of the abyss is perspective. Volcanoes rise taller than Everest, ridges longer than continents, eruptions greater than all wars combined, yet the earth absorbs them, transforms them, continues. Humanity, too, can absorb crisis, can transform, can continue. The abyss is proof that resilience is not fantasy but fact. The very continents we stand on are products of eruptions. If we build upon fire, why should we fear fire? Innovation will also mean learning from the abyss in direct ways. Submarine volcanoes generate geothermal energy, rich mineral deposits, biological models. They are laboratories of the future. Technologies inspired by them may reshape medicine, energy, even agriculture. The microbes that metabolize sulfur may teach us to metabolize waste. The circulation of vents may inspire new engineering. The resilience of deep creatures may guide human health. The abyss is not only metaphor but resource, if approached with respect. Yet respect is essential, for greed could destroy what wisdom could heal. The devil watches closely, knowing humanity's appetite for exploitation. Will we plunder the abyss for minerals and energy, or will we partner with it as teacher? The choice will determine whether innovation becomes renewal or ruin. The metaphor extends even further. Our personal lives are also volcanic. Relationships erupt and cool, careers rise and collapse. Identities shift like islands in archipelagos. To resist these shifts is suffering, to accept them is growth. The abyss tells us to see our lives as landscapes in flux, to honor the eruptions as much as the calms. The laughter of the abyss is gentle here, reminding us not to take ourselves too seriously. We are, after all, temporary islands in a chain, soon to sink and be replaced. But while we stand above water, we can bloom with life. In philosophy, too, the abyss is lesson. Existentialists speak of absurdity, Buddhists of impermanence, Stoics of control. All these echo the abyss. To live with awareness of pressure, to accept flux, to focus on what is within power, to release what is not, these are volcanic truths. The abyss has been teaching Stoicism for millions of years before the Stoics wrote their words. In art, the metaphor becomes vision. Painters depict eruptions as symbols of passion. Writers describe pressure as metaphor for desire. Musicians mirror the rumble of magma in bass. Every art is volcanic. Every creation, an eruption of imagination. Humanity itself is artistic because it is volcanic. The future of art will continue to draw from these truths, blending science and metaphor, geology and psyche. Ultimately, the lesson for the future is simple but profound. Do not fear eruption, fear stagnation. Do not worship permanence, worship adaptability. Do not deny pressure, transform it. Live as volcanoes live, restless, creative, resilient. To walk upon earth is to walk upon fire disguised. To live as human is to carry fire within. The abyss is not only beneath us, it is within us, and in both places it shapes the future. Beneath the oceans of earth, the hidden volcanoes remind us daily that the universe itself is restless and alive. To study them is not only to know our planet, but to glimpse other worlds, for everywhere in the cosmos where there is water and heat, there is the possibility of life. The future of humanity may not be confined to Earth, and the abyss beneath our seas is training ground for the abyss beyond. When astronomers peer at Jupiter's moon Europa or Saturn's moon Enceladus, they see icy crusts covering oceans, oceans perhaps warmed by volcanic activity below. The plumes of water detected streaming from Enceladus suggest hydrothermal vents, not unlike those on our seafloor. If life exists there, it may resemble the creatures thriving around our own vents. Organisms that draw energy not from sunlight but from chemistry, from fire hidden in water. In this sense, every dive into Earth's abyss is rehearsal for encounters yet to come. The devil himself might chuckle at humanity's ambition, dreaming of colonizing Mars while ignoring the alien world already beneath its feet. Yet ambition is what has always carried us forward. To imagine hydrothermal vents on Europa is to imagine cathedrals of fire beneath ice, ecosystems blooming in darkness, a second Genesis waiting. And what irony it would be if humanity discovered extraterrestrial life not in the stars but in the oceans beneath ice, places more similar to Earth's hidden abysses than to its skies. The lesson is profound. To understand the cosmos, study the seafloor. To prepare for the future, listen to the abyss. Volcanism itself is universal. Mars carries scars of Olympus Mons, the tallest volcano in the solar system. Io, another moon of Jupiter, erupts constantly, its surface remade weekly by fire. Venus is covered in volcanic plains. The cosmos is volcanic, restless, molten. That Earth carries volcanoes beneath its seas is no anomaly but part of a greater pattern, a signature of planetary life. To study our underwater volcanoes is to learn the grammar of the universe. The seafloor becomes dictionary, eruption becomes sentence, magma becomes meaning. Space agencies know this, which is why missions are planned to explore icy moons with probes designed to dive into oceans. Submarines for space, built first on Earth's seas. The link is direct. To explore the abyss is to explore the cosmos. And yet there is philosophy here too, for what does it mean if life is found beneath alien seas? It would mean that life is not fragile accident but robust inevitability, that wherever water and fire meet, life follows. It would mean we are not alone, but part of a chorus of beings shaped by volcanoes. It would mean that existence itself is volcanic, restless, adaptive, inevitable. Such knowledge would reshape religion, philosophy, identity. Humanity would be forced to see itself not as center but as participant, not as chosen but as common. The abyss prepares us for this humility. To look into alien oceans is to look into mirrors, reflections of our own hidden seas. There is humor too in imagining humans traveling light years to discover life, only to find creatures that resemble the worms and crabs of our own vents. The universe might laugh at our surprise. Yet in that laughter is lesson. Grandeur lies not only in the exotic but in the familiar. The abyss is everywhere, the volcano is universal, the story is the same across worlds. This realization could unify humanity, reminding us that we share not only Earth but destiny. If life is volcanic and oceanic, then humanity's future lies not in conquering but in joining. We are part of a cosmic lineage of fire and water. Exploration, then, is not conquest but kinship. The future colonies imagined beneath Europa's ice would not be fortresses but temples, places where humans learn humility before forces greater than themselves. Perhaps this is the true calling of exploration, not expansion of territory but expansion of awareness. Underwater volcanoes on Earth teach this already, humbling divers and scientists with their power. In space, the lesson will only deepen. Consider also the metaphor of eruption as destiny. Humanity itself is a volcano, pressure building through history, waiting for eruption into the cosmos. Our migrations across continents were eruptions. Our leaps into flight and space were eruptions. Our next leap into alien oceans will be eruption too. The seafloor teaches us rhythm. Build, pressurize, erupt, expand. To fear eruption is to fear destiny. To embrace it is to accept that humanity was never meant to remain static. The abyss pushes us outward. The universality of volcanism also suggests universality of struggle. Just as we face eruptions that threaten our cities, so too might alien civilizations have faced their own volcanic crises. To survive is to adapt. Perhaps life elsewhere carries myths like ours, religions born of fire and water, philosophies shaped by impermanence. Perhaps we are not unique in our awe, our fear, our humor. The cosmos may be full of beings laughing at themselves, just as we laugh at ours, struggling with eruptions both literal and metaphorical. To connect with them would be to share not only technology but myth. It would be to share the wisdom of volcanoes. Ultimately, the future shaped by underwater volcanoes, is a future of humility, resilience, and creativity. They remind us that pressure is potential, eruption is transformation, fire is not only destruction but creation. These lessons apply to Earth, to society, to individuals, and to the cosmos. To ignore them is to stumble, to learn them is to grow. The abyss is scripture written in magma, the universe its cathedral. Humanity stands at the threshold, ready to read, ready to listen. The question is whether we will approach with arrogance or with reverence. The devil would hope for arrogance, for that would ensure downfall. Wisdom would hope for reverence, for that would ensure survival. In the end, the choice is ours, but the volcanoes will erupt regardless. They do not wait for permission, they do not require belief. They act, and in their action lies destiny. Beneath the surface of the ocean, the volcanoes continue their work without pause, eruptions unseen, mountains rising and sinking, vents breathing in rhythms older than memory. As humanity tells its stories, builds its cities, and debates its future, the abyss continues its silent creation. To meditate on underwater volcanoes is to meditate on life itself, for within them lies the entire paradox of existence, creation through destruction, silence through eruption, permanence through impermanence. They are the most honest of teachers, showing us that what we fear most is also what we need most, that what unsettles us also sustains us, that endings are beginnings disguised. The fire beneath the ocean has sculpted continents, nourished ecosystems, and perhaps even seeded the chemistry that gave rise to life. It is no exaggeration to say that without underwater volcanoes we would not exist. Every breath we take, every step we walk, every thought we think is contingent on the restless labor of the abyss. And yet we ignore them, living as though stability is natural, as though the ground beneath us is firm, as though oceans are only blue surfaces and not gateways to fire. The devil would shake his head and smile at this blindness, for he knows that denial is the favorite refuge of humanity. But the abyss does not care whether we notice. It will continue, whether worshipped or ignored. In this indifference lies both terror and comfort, for it means we are free to choose our meaning without altering the course of fire. Death, too, is mirrored in these volcanoes. Just as they swallow islands and erase coastlines, so too does mortality swallow individuals and civilizations. But just as they also create new land and fertile soil, so too does death create space for renewal, for others to rise, for new life to bloom. The cycle of eruption and repose is the cycle of existence. To fear it is natural, but to understand it is liberation. We are not separate from these cycles. We are participants in them. Our bodies are made of elements forged in eruptions long past. Our lives depend on ecosystems nourished by vents. Our futures will be shaped by eruptions yet to come. We are, in a very literal sense, volcanic beings. The time scale of the abyss also humbles us. Volcanoes measure their lives in millions of years. They erupt across epochs. They sculpt continents over eons. Human history, in comparison, is a flicker. Empires rise and fall in the span of a single volcanic pause. Religions are born and die while a ridge continues to breathe lava. Philosophies are debated and forgotten while a seamount grows slowly in the dark. To see this is to feel small, but also to feel part of something larger. Our stories are brief, but they are part of a symphony that began before us and will continue long after us. To live with this awareness is to live more deeply, more reverently, more joyfully. For if we cannot make time infinite, we can make our awareness infinite. The abyss teaches this, that the measure of life is not its length but its depth. There is humor here too. Imagine humanity worrying endlessly about trivialities, fashion, gossip, minor inconveniences, while beneath them, entire mountain ranges are rising and falling. The abyss must laugh, not cruelly but kindly, as a parent laughs at a child's preoccupations. For in the grand rhythm of fire and water our troubles are small. This is not to dismiss them, but to place them in scale, and in scale they are less overwhelming. Perspective is a gift of the abyss. It allows us to see that what feels like catastrophe may be ripple, that what feels permanent may be passing, that what feels unbearable may in time become fertile ground. Perhaps the greatest lesson is that the abyss is not enemy but companion. It destroys, yes, but it also creates. It frightens, yes, but it also inspires. It is indifferent, yes, but it also sustains. To live in harmony with this paradox is wisdom. To fight it is futility. The ocean itself reminds us of this, for it covers the scars of eruptions with beauty, turning black basalt into coral gardens, turning pumice into beaches, turning lava into life. We too can cover our scars with beauty, turning pain into compassion, loss into strength, endings into beginnings. The abyss is proof that this is possible. It has done it for millions of years and will continue for millions more. Ultimately, the hidden volcanoes beneath the waves reveal not only the story of Earth but the story of existence. They remind us that the universe is alive, that change is constant, that resilience is essential. They remind us that silence is deceptive, that beneath calm surfaces lie restless depths. They remind us that what we fear can also be what saves us. To live with this knowledge is to live awake. The question is whether we will. As humanity moves forward, facing challenges of climate, conflict, and meaning, perhaps the wisdom of the abyss will guide us. Perhaps we will learn that eruption is not to be avoided but embraced, that pressure is not to be denied but transformed, that impermanence is not curse but gift. Perhaps we will learn to live like volcanoes, restless yet creative, destructive yet generous, impermanent yet eternal in rhythm. The abyss will continue regardless, but if we listen, it will continue within us too. And when our civilizations sink, when our names are forgotten, when our works are dust, the volcanoes will still be there, erupting in darkness, sculpting the future. They will not mourn us, nor celebrate us, but in their indifference lies truth. We are part of their fire, and that is enough.